Hey, congrats on getting the J.O.M.T opened. Of course, the obvious question, how do I get the lid back on? Well, there's actually a trick to it. First off, you want to find that seam on the main part. And then on the lid, you want to look for a notch on the inside part. In this case, that's that right there. Now you want to line those two up, and then place the lid on. And then press firmly, and they should snap in. Just like that. And now you're back to spinning as before. Now the same thing can be done with the mini version. Again, you want to look at the main part. And there you are, you've got a seam right there. Then you want to check the lid and look for a little notch right there. So with those two, you want to line them up and then place them in like so. And with a snap, you're back to spinning your night away. And there you go. With the J.O.M.T Mini, what you're going to see is that that silver circle that was on the bottom is actually half of a coin here. It's symmetrical, so you can actually turn it upside down and display your achievement when you screw in the lid. But if you remove the coin and then put the lid on anyways, once again, you're going to have to align the seam here along with the notch on the inside of the lid. Once you do that, you can actually see the mechanism of the J.O.M.T in action. Now you might be wondering, how do I get the gold back inside? Well, there are a few tricks to it. The first one is you're going to grab 3 gold lid pieces and then nest them like so. And so on and so forth. So to do this for real, we're going to grab the jar and then take one of the gold lid pieces and hold it like this. And then, of course, just drop it inside. And it should rest in like this. Then you're going to do the same with another gold lid piece. You drop it in. And then you'll notice it'll nest in like this. Now you can shift it left and right. Try shifting it to the right like so. Then we're going to grab a third piece and do the same thing once more, though this one will need some extra attention. So I'm going to guide it to the right spot and make sure it lies flat, just like that. Turn it around, and we're going to grab the gold bar, and you want to place it in like that. Now make sure that the gold bar clears the mouth of the jar like this. Then we're going to grab the last gold lid piece and you want to place it like so, where the tip is near the middle of the jar. Something like this. Last but not least, we're going to grab the little guy. You're going to lie him on his back and try to put his head in the middle of the jar. So it's something like this. Now what's crucial at this point is that all the gold is below the mouth of the jar. The reason is that this lid has got a gearbox to it. So this needs to fit inside the mouth of the jar when it's shut. So even though this might stick out a little bit, you'll notice when you put some pressure on it, it'll flatten out below the boundary. So do try this this way of packing. I found another way that will accidentally cause the piece to stick up when you jostle it around. And that actually caused the lid to wedge itself inside. And it broke. I couldn't remove it. So try making sure that the gold, even if you shift it around, it doesn't cause any obstructions in the mouth. Now to actually get the lid on, what you're going to do is look at the main body of the jar and find a seam just right there. Then you're going to look in the lid and there should be another seam inside the inner part. So that would be this right here. Yeah, what you're going to do is line that up like so that both seams are in alignment. Then push down firmly, 1 or 2 clicks, and now you should be back to spinning your night away. And there you go. So, I hear you want to take apart and reassemble the J.O.M.T lid. Now, first off, I do want to suggest you reconsider your life choices, because this will be very finicky, and I cannot guarantee that you'll be able to put it back together. However, I don't know, maybe you accidentally submerged it in water and you want to dry out the pieces before they get moldy, or something like that. Then maybe you do want to take this apart. So, but however, I will suggest that you watch the rest of this video completely and be absolutely sure that you want to do this. Now, what we're going to do here is first take it apart, of course. So what you're going to want to do is take a look at the post here, that very top here. There are a couple of imperfections. You want to rotate the whole lid until those 2 imperfections are either pointed towards you or away from you. Then you want to rotate the inner part until you see an X form with that clip over there. Now, hopefully you've got a little bit of fingernail, because you're going to want to lift these top 2 arms here. And you want to pull towards you, and it should snap off, just like that. Set that aside, and then of course you can turn this upside down and just dump the contents like so. And that's how to take apart the lid. There's no going back now. Alright, here's how to reassemble the lid. Now the outside might actually look a little different depending on what version of J.O.M.T you've got, but the insides will look the same. So you've got this sort of large hollow inside and a post. And then what you're going to do is grab another piece, the lid inner. This one has 5 holes around and 1 in the middle. You're going to want to drop this piece into the first one, and it should spin pretty freely, like so. Next up, we're going to grab a ring gear. Notice how it has notches around it. You want those notches pointed upwards as you drop them into the assembly, like that. Then we're going to grab our first gear. This is one with a single hole in it. And you'll also notice that there are 5 pins going around. You want to point the pins downward, and they'll eventually fall into the 5 holes over there in the lid inner. The easiest thing I found is to just drop it in like so. Use one hand to hold the inner and outer lid together. And then you can spin the ring gear until the gear falls into the holes. Just like that. Now, what you're going to notice is that the hole of the gear is actually off-center. You want to find a spot where the gap between the post and the outside of the hole is smallest, and that's around there. And you want to position it at the top, or away from you. Then we're going to grab one of the circular pieces, the one with 5 circular holes around. And what you're going to notice is that there's this strange protrusion. You could view it like a really wide pin, but it has a hole in the middle. And it's also off-center, and has weird cutouts, of course. What you'll want to do is find that thinnest part there, and that should align up with the hole in the last gear you dropped. Once you have that oriented, you're going to flip this upside down, and you want to drop it in so that its pin goes into the hole of the last gear. And you want to make sure that goes into the piece and everything sits flat. Next up, you're going to grab another gear. This one has tons of triangular holes in it. Again, it has 5 pins around, and you want those 5 pins to end up inside the 5 holes of the last piece you dropped. So keep track of where those pins are because you're about to drop them in, and you want to make sure it sits flat. Just like that. Again, you're going to see that the center hole is off center. Try to find the smallest gap between the post and the outside of that hole. Position it in a way that you'll remember, pretty much away from you, and then grab another piece. This one is going to be another circular piece, this time with 4 holes around. And its thinnest part for its pin is right there, pointed upwards or away from you. Now with that orientation in mind, I'll flip it over, and you want to drop it in so that its pin goes into that hole right there. Last but not least, we've got one more gear. This one has 4 pins around. You want to flip it over so that its pins go into those 4 holes right there. Just like so. Now the last bit is going to be a bit familiar to the disassembly, but it's going to be a little more difficult to describe this time. What you want to do is to spin the whole thing around until the 2 imperfections on the lid's post points towards you or away from you, just like that. Then you want to rotate the inner part so that the notches of the ring gear, well, there are 2 of them at the top and 2 of them at the bottom. Now, you want to pick up this last piece, which is the clip. There are 2 sides to them. One side that is a bit squiggly. You want that to be side down. And you want to hold it so it looks like an X. Now, long story short, you're going to try to get this hole around that post, and you want the arms of the clip to go into those slots in the ring gear. The way you're going to do this is you're going to end up flexing this piece, like so. Though note that's exaggerated. What you're actually going to want to do is to flex it as little as possible and for as little time as possible. Because the more you do that, the more out of shape it will get and eventually not be very useful. That's why I've included some spare parts. But here is when you're going to end up using almost all of your fingers. You're going to use a couple of them from each hand, of course, to hold up the main assembly. You're going to use your thumb and index fingers to hold the top of the clip. And then what I'm going to do now is to push with my thumbs to flex the clip around the post and let everything else pop into place. So this is what it should look like. Just like that. And now, if everything goes according to plan, it should spin pretty freely, just like that. And there you go. That's how to reassemble the lid. It should be able to, as before, just pop back onto the body of the jar. So, you've got a seam. You line it up with the inner notch of the lid right there. And drop them in like that. Press firmly, just like this, and you're off to the races. Thanks for watching.